Ada Peterson, the town beauty who married crazy Elmo Peterson because of his fame as sole survivor of the tragedy, claimed they were moving to be near her ailing aunt in Tampa. But everybody knew Ada Peterson didn't have any kin still living. The truth was, everyone was afraid. After a while, the only residents left in Briery Swamp were the postmaster and Tickles the stuffed skunk. Soon a drought came to the town, and the swamps dried up, all but for one lake in the mountains, back behind skunkweed and sinkholes and brambleberry bushes, where no one bothered to go. Eventually, the postmaster died. The post office saw its last letter come in 1951, nearly a year later. The mailman who delivered it wandered off his route into the woods that same afternoon, and disappeared. The letter sat in the post office for many years after that, unread. 50 years later, a young woman with the last name of Bird moved into the old Breadwaller place and had a child. Briery Swamp slept, and May Ellen Bird, only a baby after all, who did not know the strange history of her town or even the name of it yet, was blissfully unaware that it slept with one eye open. Part 1. Into the Woods. Chapter 1. A Sack of Beans. May Ellen Bird, age 10, occasionally glanced at the brochure her mom had taped to her door that afternoon and scowled. St. Agatha's boarding school for girls with high socks. A few minutes ago, May had taken her black marker and written the word socks over what had originally been the last word of the headline. Judging by the photos of girls in stiff plaid uniforms plastering the brochure, girls with high prospects was not nearly as accurate. The Woods watched silently through the farthest east window of White Moss Manor as May tried to concentrate on her work, and sometimes, looking up from the curious project strewn across her desk, chewing on a pencil, May watched them back. Skinny and straight, with short black bobbed hair and big brown eyes, May ran her fingers over the objects before her: a clump of black fur, a light bulb, a jar, a book titled Secrets of the Egyptian Mummies, and some wire. Occasionally May swiveled to gaze at Somber Kitty, who laid across her bed like a discarded piece of laundry. His belly faced the ceiling, and he eyed her lazily. Neither May nor Somber Kitty knew it, but passing squirrels and chipmunks thought the cat was decidedly ugly. He had huge, pointy ears and a skinny tail, and was mostly bald, with just a little bit of fuzz covering his soft skin. His mouth was turned down in a thoughtful frown, an expression he had been wearing ever since May had gotten him 3 years before on her 7th birthday. May had disliked him immediately. "He's bald," she'd said. "He's a hairless Rex," her mom had replied. "He's interesting." "He looks depressed." "He's somber." May's mom had then explained that somber meant sad, which also meant melancholy. So that was one thing they both agreed on. The cat was most definitely sad. It was almost as if from the moment he had set his tilty green eyes on May, he had sensed her disappointment in him and sympathized. May had not wanted him, of course. Her first cat, Legume, had died when May was 6, and she had resigned herself to a life of grief. She knew there could never be another Legume, which, by the way, is another word for peanut. She'd insisted on wearing black ever since. But her mom had insisted on another pet. "You spend too much time alone," she had said with big brown worried eyes, even bigger and browner than May's. Mrs. Bird had long ago given up trying to get May to bring home friends from school. "Why don't you invite Mary Beth over?" "She has the chicken pox." "Claire?" "She's only allowed out on President's Day." "Mary Ruth?" "Leprosy. It's so sad." Finally, one afternoon, May had stood in her mom's doorway, crossed her arms, and announced that she would accept a cat as long as it was a black tiger. She got stuck with Somber Kitty. Noticing her watching him now, Somber Kitty opened his mouth and asked, "Meow? Meow? May?" "That's my name, don't wear it out," May replied. Knock, knock, knock. May's mom poked her head into the room. "So what do you think?" she asked hopefully, smiling. "It looks like a great school, doesn't it?" May crossed her arms over her waist and looked toward her bed. "Maybe if you're a nun," she offered thoughtfully. The smile on Mrs. Bird's face dropped, and May felt her heart drop too. "Maybe it's okay," May added. She looked at Somber Kitty, who looked at her. Their traded glance said Somber Kitty understood, even if Mrs. Bird didn't. May could never be happy at a school like St. Agatha's, wearing high socks and stuck in New York City without the woods. "Well, it's something to think about," Mrs. Bird said hopefully, biting her lip. "I think the structure would be good for you. I'd live right nearby, and we could tour the city on the weekends." Mrs. Bird ducked into the room, stooped down, and made her way to May's desk. From the ceiling hung a number of objects: a dragonfly wind chime, a clothes hanger strung with old sumac leaves, old dry strands of ivy. At the window sat a pair of binoculars to watch for insects and critters, and a telescope aimed at the sky for looking at the stars. The walls were so covered in pictures that you couldn't see the old calico wallpaper. There were drawings of legume, of Mrs. Bird, of the woods, and of imaginary places and friends and creatures, some with wings and purple hair, black capes and horns, and one particularly spooky one with a lopsided head. There were none of Somber Kitty, who often followed Mrs. Bird's eyes to the wall with hurt curiosity, searching for a likeness of himself. Studying the spookier, darker pictures, Mrs. Bird's eyes sometimes got big and worried again. "You don't want people to think you're eccentric," she'd say, looking more somber than a certain cat. "You ready for the picnic?" Mrs. Bird asked, walking up behind May and hugging her tight. May nodded, tugging at the tassels of the sari she'd wrapped around her body like a dress. Because Briery Swamp was too small and empty to have a day, May and Mrs. Bird always attended the annual Hog Wallow Day extravaganza and picnic. It was 2 towns away, but it involved a parade and games and seeing all the kids from school. "Yep," she replied, trying to sound bright. Mrs. Bird kissed the top of May's head, her jasmine perfume sinking into May's sari. "Your classmates will be happy to see you." May blushed. She doubted it. May didn't mention that since school let out, she had made improvements, in secret, getting ready for this exact day. She had gained 2 pounds, eating sesame and peanut butter balls 2 at a time, so she wasn't quite so skinny. Her knees didn't look as knobby as they had, and she had worked on her smile in the mirror. Usually May's smile looked like a grimace, but she'd gotten it to look halfway normal, she thought. Girls with nice smiles made friends. Mrs. Bird liked to remind May of this when she came to volunteer on hot dog days and saw how May sat at the end of the 5th grade table, curled over her carrots. "I don't know how to make friends," May would say, embarrassed. "Well, actually, you don't really make friends," Mrs. Bird always replied. "You just have to let them happen." May didn't think that was very helpful. "What are you making now?" Mrs. Bird asked. May surveyed the pieces in front of her. "A materializer. It makes things you imagine real. Like if you imagine a pair of emerald earrings, it makes the earrings appear." Mrs. Bird crouched, moved back toward the door, then turned a thoughtful gaze on May. "Maybe you should be a lawyer someday. Then you can make enough money to get me those earrings for real." May glanced at the materializer. It was supposed to be for real. "You'd better get a quick bath. I'll run the water." May lounged on her bed, picturing what it would be like if she went to the picnic today and her classmates couldn't recognize her with the extra 2 pounds and the big real look.